Hello again, gamers. Welcome back to the Board Game Captain. I'm the Captain.
I'm Lynn.
And today we're going to be doing our first episode of a new series we're trying out called Gamealike Recommendations. And this first episode is going to be Gamealike recommendations for classic games. So this was your idea, Lynn. So what is the concept here? Explain the concept to the viewers.
The concept is to take a well-known game and recommend a similar game in some way that may not be as well-known.
But is available.
Yes.
So we checked. These are all either currently available for sale or in some cases are going to be coming out soonish in regard to a new printing or a new Kickstarter for them. And for this episode, we're doing all classic games. So what's the first classic game on our list here?
Monopoly.
All right, so everybody knows Monopoly. It is the classic game of property ownership and exploitive landlordship, but it's also a game that you should never play if you like the people you're playing with, because you're going to end up hating them. And they're going to end up hating you. So instead, we're going to recommend some other games to you. Does that back cover Monopoly?
Yeah.
So, Lynn, what game do you have to recommend to people if they grew up playing Monopoly, if they know Monopoly, but what better, modern, available game do you have to recommend?
Lords of Vegas.
Ooh, now why?
You have the same feel as Monopoly, where you get hotels and casinos, and you're building up, your area of the board, and you're getting money from the cards.
So it's economic,
and you can hostily take over other people's casino hotels.
Yes.
There's all the economic and.
So it fills a sort of similar economic niche. I totally agree. I love Lords of Vegas. Fills a sort of similar economic niche without being as punishing as Monopoly. Because you don't have that, oops, I accidentally rolled to land on Boardwalk with a hotel and I'm now completely bankrupt. Like, that doesn't happen. Everybody still builds up their economics, but it doesn't happen as... it doesn't turn on a dime as much as Monopoly would. Do you agree with that?
Yeah.
So mine that I have for Monopoly here is Anno 1800. So similarly, this is another kind of got economic and property development. So the idea is you are in the year 1800 and you are building up colonies on islands and you're building up different industries and businesses to help you have the most successful colonies on those islands. Different businesses give you new worker placement spots you can place meeples onto to earn you different things. Different products are needed to build new industries to work your way up this almost like tech tree of industries. And you want to have the most economically prosperous colonies. So similarly, I mean, what are your thoughts on Anno 1800?
I think it fits. It gives you the same kind of feel without it being like a dead-on copy.
Well, the mechanics are totally different, but you got the feel is what I was going for, because there are very few games that really have the same kind of mechanics as Monopoly that are good, because roll and move and all that. But yeah, that's kind of what I was going for, was for the feel. So, but you do think I succeeded with my recommendation?
Yeah.
All right. Well, then we seem to be in total agreement on these two recommendations. Let's move on. Lynn, what is the next game we have some recommendations for?
We have checkers and chess.
The two classic, well-known capture-based abstract strategy games that just about everybody grew up playing at some point or another in their youth. What do you have to recommend as a modern game that is similar to checkers and chess?
I have Onitama.
Oh, okay.
So instead of the pieces moving a specific way, you have cards that change every game that give you movement, and you have 3 cards. And you have 2 in front of you, and then
there's one in the middle.
There's one in the middle that you swap out when you use one in front of you, because you can only use the card once, and then you have to swap it with the unused one.
Which means that you're putting the card you used over there to then be taken by your opponents. You're actually giving them a maneuver. So there's 5 total maneuvers in any given game of Onitama, because you have 2, your opponent has 2, and there's 1 in the middle, and the swapping happens constantly.
Yeah, and then I mean you either have to get to the other side of the board, like in checkers.
To this, well, you get to
You have to
the
get to,
center
like,
space on the other side of the board.
Yeah. There's a specific spot you have to occupy.
Which can be an instant win, unlike checkers. Checkers,
Yeah.
you get to the other side of the board and you become a king.
Yeah. But it's just similar. You have to get to the other
Sure.
side of the board, or I think the other thing is
Or
you
you
just
can
have
capture
to,
the king.
You just have to.
You capture the master. Is like the king in chess, because they have like 4 students and a master, I think. And if you capture the master, you win. Or if you get to the temple space, which is where the master starts, which is in the center of the other side of the board. No, this is a really good game. This has been around for a number of years now, but it definitely holds up. I totally agree. Onitama is a good one. So the one I've got, I don't think you've tried, so I don't know if I don't think I'm gonna be able to get thoughts from you on this one. But the one I have is That Time You Killed Me. So this is a bizarre modern abstract game, and very modern with some very modern mechanics. You have 3 boards which are meant to represent 3 different time periods in the time stream, basically past, present, and future. And what you have to do is you have to wipe out your opponent in 2 of the time periods in the time stream. You get to travel through time, bouncing around between the different time periods, and you can push your opponent, crush them into a wall, or push 2 versions of your opponent copying the time stream together to kill them. And then there's other things that can happen. There's these modules that you add in all different mechanics. Like there's one where if you plant a seed in one spot in the time stream, it becomes a shrub in the next time period in the same spot, and a tree in the third spot, and you can push the tree down on someone and have it fall on them. Then there's ones where you can carve statues, and you can move the statues around, and wherever you move them, later time period versions of the same statue will move the same direction in the same number of spaces. And there's a third module where you have elephants, and if you train them, they remember being trained in the next time period, and you can direct the elephant to stampede and crush your opponent's pieces. And then once you learn all the modules, you can do combinations of any 2 of the 3 modules and combine all their effects. And then there's achievement cards you can unlock, which can give you asymmetrical player powers and all sorts of extra cool rules to add into the game. The game is like an endless supply of rules that you can try out in different combinations, and it is super awesome. And that's why That Time You Killed Me is my replacement for chess and checkers, because it's an abstract strategy game plus lots of extra stuff. I don't know. Do you think you would like it?
I have no idea.
You have to give it a try one time and see what you think. But I was going to say, I've mainly played it with Alex, and Alex and I have loved it. So, Lynn, what is our next game on our list?
The next one is Clue.
The classic game of deduction. Somebody murdered Mr. Body. Was it Colonel Mustard with the wrench in the study? Clue is not a bad game and actually kind of mostly holds up, except for the roll and move part of it. But otherwise, it's actually not terrible, but there are better games that do what it does better, that are more modern. So for that, let's recommend a couple. What do you got? What's your recommendation?
Mine is Mysterium.
A evergreen game that has been in print for years again at this point.
Where you are most of the players are psychics, and then one player is a ghost, and the ghost is trying to give the psychics hints about who killed them, what room they died in, and what object had something to do with their death.
Yes, because unlike Clue, it doesn't have to be a murder weapon. It could just be something that was important to the reason why they were killed. It could have something to do with the motive or something.
Yes.
And this is one where it really feels like the designers were very much aiming towards making an update of Clue because of how similar this concept is. It's just done in a different way. They took away all the things that didn't work, like roll and move, and they changed it into basically a almost semi-cooperative game, kind of.
Yeah.
Would you? Because you do have the person who gets the most points is kind of the overall winner, but you all have to win. You all have to succeed. Really good game. So for my recommendation, I have a newer game that again feels like another update to Clue, but again done with a new interesting theme. And while it has some similarities also to Mysterium, It is a recombination of mechanics done in a slightly different way, and this one is Rear Window. So Rear Window is another game, another modern game that again you have to figure out. In this game, you have to figure out even if there was a murder, because similar to the concept of the movie Rear Window that it is based on, you witness what you think is a murder through the rear window, but then evidence comes out where it sounds like maybe there wasn't actually a murder. Can you trust your own eyes? Do you know what you saw? And in the case of this game, not only do you have to figure out who did the murder, you have to figure out if it actually was a murder or not, and it's a bit up in the air. And this one is more cut and dry competitive than Mysterium is, because there's this thing where if everybody figures out who was the person that was seen, but doesn't figure out correctly whether it was a real murder or not, the person who is controlling everything, the director Alfred Hitchcock, wins. Like they win by partially tricking you, which is pretty brilliant. And there's a really interesting twist on it. Very fun. Rear Window is my recommendation for Clue. Thoughts on Rear Window?
It's all right.
All right. I know you don't like it as much as Mysterium, right? So you definitely recommend Mysterium above Rear Window. I just think it's another alternate game for people who liked Clue to try out, and that can be found in stores at the moment. All right. So what do we have next?
Next is Battleship.
Battleship. So what game do you have to recommend as a modern replacement for Battleship? And I want to just throw this out there. Unlike Clue, Battleship does not hold up. This is a game that really does not hold up, so it does need modern replacements. What do you got?
I have Letters from Whitechapel.
This is an interesting one. Go ahead.
Because one player is Jack the Ripper, and the other players are the detectives trying to find Jack. And all Jack is trying to do is evade the detectives long enough to commit all the murders and then get back to his hideout. So it's similar in that the detectives are trying to nail down where he is.
Yes.
But it's one-sided because Jack knows where the detectives are. They're out on the board.
But it does have a similar feel, that whole trying to figure out where your enemy is to Battleship, but done in a much better way. I've heard another game that's very much like this there's another one called like Fury of Dracula that's apparently very similar to Letters from Whitechapel as well, though we haven't tried that one. But I've heard from people on the channel that's another really good one that again captures that same kind of feel. I like Letters from Whitechapel. It's very tricksy. Well, if you're Jack the Ripper, you have to be tricksy. If you're playing the police detectives, you have to be very clever and not give too much away about what you know to Jack the Ripper, while trying to figure out where they are and finding them and arresting them before they complete all the murders, which can be difficult, but can also be very rewarding when you manage to make it happen. This game also plays really well 2 players, because then if one person is controlling all the detectives, they can just keep their mouth shut and not give anything away, and just move all the detectives where they want them and misdirect Jack a bit. Okay. So mine I have for Battleship is one that's very on the nose in regard to being a modern replacement for Battleship. This is Sonar. So Sonar is a turn-based game where you play either 2 or 4 players. I mean, you can play it at 3, but basically what it is each player or team of players controls a submarine. And when you play 2-on-2, one player is the captain of the submarine, while one player is the sonar operator. And that's where it plays best, is at 4 players. And the sonar operator is attempting to locate the enemy submarine, while the captain is attempting to evade the enemy sonar. And you're trying to find your opponent and shoot them twice with 2 torpedoes to win. Every time you make a move, you have to announce what direction you moved in. And your opponent has the map that you're both moving around in, and they have a transparency that they lay over the map, and they're drawing the lines you move in, and they can move it around and use deduction to figure out where you could be. And then every once in a while, depending on the number of moves, you charge up your abilities to do things like being able to take a shot or to do a sonar ping, which gives you extra information, or to run silently to try to, not give as much information to your opponent. And this is an incredibly good battle of wits. And unlike the other game, unlike Letters from Whitechapel, it's totally symmetrical. You're both trying to deduce where your opponent is while trying to evade them at the same time. This game, in my opinion, is Battleship done right. It definitely it does what Battleship wanted to do, but with more modern mechanics and done in a more fun way.
Okay.
Any thoughts on Sonar? I know you're not a huge fan of Sonar, but will you admit that it is Battleship done in a more modern, cool way?
Yeah.
Okay. And this is one that is fairly widely available. So, what do we have? I think we have one left. Is that correct?
Yes.
What is our final classic game for us to give recommendations on?
Rummy 500.
Now, Rummy 500, if you're not familiar, is of course the classic set collecting game, sister game to Rummy to Gin Rummy, where you collect sets of three of a kind or straights, and then you lay them on the table, and you want to be the first to go out to run out of cards because you always have to discard a card at the end of your hand, and then you go out, and it's the person basically with the most points wins. But if you put down a lot of sets before you go out, you're going to win. It's essentially how Rummy 500 works. Short version. But what do you have to recommend as I'm guessing something set collecting?
I have Behind the Throne.
Okay, good.
So, it's a card game where you are collecting sets of cards, but each number, like 5, 6, whatever, has a different ability that when you get a certain amount
I think
of
it's when you
that,
have more of them than your opponents.
yeah, when you get a certain amount, you can do that ability, and it's different things.
Asymmetrical player
Yeah.
powers, set collecting. This
Yeah.
is a really cool game. And yeah, and I like how having the most of a card gives you abilities. And generally speaking, the weaker the card is in its point value, the more powerful they are in their abilities. Because the more valuable cards like have weaker and weaker abilities as they get more valuable. But the really cheap cards, which are ones you want to play sets of early, play cards down early, will get you amazing abilities to help you throughout the game. So yeah, totally agree. Mine I have is a newer game. This is one we were only introduced to, I think, about a year ago. Nidavellir. So Nidavellir is a bidding game, but also a set collecting game. You bid on cards from taverns. Most of the cards are dwarves that then you are trying to set collect. You want to collect sets of the dwarves, and each of them score in different ways. That usually requires you having large sets of them to be able to score. But they also have different abilities, and then there are also unique dwarves that give you extra ways to score or extra abilities that you can use throughout the game. So similarly to yours with Behind the Throne, with all the extra abilities from the factionless dwarves and such. But yeah, Nidavellir is a fantastic game. It's a great bidding game. It is a great set collecting game, and it is a great card game. Thoughts on Nidavellir?
I like it. I think it's a good option for that type of Rummy 500 game.
Fair enough. So there you have it. Those are our recommendations for these classic games. Gamealike recommendations for you to try if you played these games as a kid, but were looking for something that does what they do, but more modern and in a better way. Let us know your recommendations for each of these classic games in the comments down below. Let us know what you thought of our list in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed this video and you'd like to see us do more game-alike recommendations, be sure to give it a like, share it on all forms of social media. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the Board Game Captain. That's Captain spelled with a K on YouTube. And until next time, game on.